Today in the Central Space, we have a special guest, John Carr, who comes to us from our lab right here in Merton, Wisconsin. John is the product evaluation chemist, and he works every day to evaluate our products in the field and in our lab. Hi, John.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for being here. So, John, we're living in a world right now that is centered around disinfecting and keeping areas safe. The focus has changed to make sure everything is antimicrobial or disinfected. So we want to talk today about floors. So every space that we're in has a floor.
Correct.
And here at Essential, we mostly deal with floors of VCT, wood, vinyl, terrazzo, and concrete floors. And one of the things that we're hearing about in the field right now, kind of a buzzword, is about antimicrobial claims. So what I'd like to do today is, can you give us your take on these claims?
So you're referring to floor finishes that have the antimicrobial claims.
Sure.
I'm sure they're true. They are tested. They lay out the testing parameters and the actual facility that does the testing. So, they are there. Generally, the best that we can tell, it either contains some sort of silver complex or some sort of zinc complex. Those will act the same way that the quaternary amines do. They're both positively charged, and they will disrupt the bacteria's metabolic functions and thereby killing it.
Currently, we at Essential do not have any floors that have the antimicrobial claim in them. Okay, so that I just want to make sure we know that going forward. So one of the things that I discovered, and I would like to talk a little bit about it, is that the antimicrobial claims, they only have a testing of about a 24-hour period. What do we have for testing that's showing that that's effective past?
Well, so that is a very good point that you bring up. The testing on plastics, which this would, they probably coated a piece of plastic with this floor finish, and then they tested it. The test runs for 24 hours, and it's in a very humid, moist area because that's what bacteria, viruses, mold, everything needs moisture to grow. You want to get rid of mold, dry out wherever the mold is, right?
Yep.
So, but that's it. 24 hours, they test it, and then here's your result. A floor finish, there's no long-term testing for the coating. So we don't know. I mean, does it get worn off or walked off? I mean, those are the things that we just don't know. One of the cons, when you look up the test itself, they do a pro section and a con section. I mean, they're very honest. And one of the, under the cons is so when you run a test, you have the test and then you have a negative, right? To make sure that everything's, on the uncoated plastic, so there may be instances where it doesn't grow anything, even if it's untreated.
Right.
Still, when this is all said and done, it's still a floor. And I am not minimizing the importance of floors. I mean, they're, we use them all the time, right?
They're in every single space.
They need to be safe. They need to be maintained, for aesthetics, for the safety of people walking on them, traversing. But it is not a high touch surface.
Sure.
So, and new information has come out recently that, again, we're talking today about a virus, that it does, in fact, the passing along of it from person to person may happen more by touching contaminated surfaces. Then I'm sure the respiratory is still there, but it does, in fact, live on surfaces.
Okay.
The reason Essential does not have a floor finish of that nature is because it's a floor, right? So even the CDC recognizes that when it comes to housekeeping, there's two types of surfaces, or they, break it down into two types. One is high touch surfaces, rails, for instance, going down a stairs, doorknobs, we all know what those are, and low or no touch surfaces.
Okay.
So floors, because in general, usually they are no touch surfaces. So we at Essential just think that adding those types of things, those claims to the finish might be a bit of overkill, if you will. And then there's the other hand, that they are effective against bacteria and molds, but not funguses or viruses. And of course, right now, today is March 4th, 2021. We've lived a year now
Right.
In America, longer worldwide, with the virus being the major thing that has affected all of our lives. So in this instance, today, the floor finishes that have the antimicrobial claim are not effective against viruses.
And so our CDC recommendations, are these antimicrobials in any recommendations anywhere? Are you, for instance, in schools or anything like that, are they recommending that?
They do not.
They
do not
CDC.
specifically recommend those types of coatings
Okay.
for any surface, even because they're not only in floor finishes, but now you can get coatings for handrails and doorknobs.
Okay.
Like we talked about. They don't even mention those. What the CDC focuses on is your cleaning procedures and parameters.
Sure. Which leads me right into the next question, which is, since Essential doesn't have these products and we don't have the claims in our products, what is it that we recommend that goes along with the CDC guidelines for cleaning floors in particular?
We are going with the CDC's recommendations. It's not Essential thinking this is the better way to do it,
Right.
This is the CDC's recommendation is simply to keep surfaces clean. They make a statement that extraordinary cleaning and decontamination of floors is unwarranted. Studies have demonstrated that disinfection of floors offers no advantage over regular detergent water cleaning and has minimal or no impact on the occurrence of infections. Now, that being said, a floor would need to be regularly cleaned. And in the instance of, we deal a lot in schools. So if a bodily fluid were to get on the floor, then you would want to get your disinfectant out and clean that up. Otherwise, regular dust mopping, sweeping is not recommended.
Okay.
Because that throws dust up into the air.
Okay.
So a dust mop that will attract dust and keep it to itself, and then either wet mopping or auto scrubbing. If you are using a wet mop and you are in a situation where it needs to be disinfected for whatever reason, the water should be changed. So like a hallway, if you're using a wet mop, you'd mop a section of hallway and then change the water. Auto scrubbers, of course, are fine because they put it down and they're picking it up right away. You're not reusing the water there. But simply remove, like washing our hands, right? Early on, we were told, and still always, and we teach our children to always wash your hands. Yes. Well, you're not disinfecting your hands, right? What you're doing is you're removing whatever contaminant is on them. Right. And using a general cleaner, a neutral cleaner on a floor does the same thing.
So go into that a little bit. So talk to me a little bit about the neutral cleaner that we have, because I know that we have a neutral cleaner that goes right on the floors and we can use it as a daily cleaner, correct?
Yes, right. Well, all soaps when you boil it down to a basic level, act in the same way. They have two parts to them. One is a hydrophobic, right? Okay. It hates water, and the other end loves water, hydrophilic.
Okay.
So the hydrophobic part will surround the particle, whatever it may be, and then it keeps it in solution. That's called the micelle. And then, so you have this dirty water with these little surfactant globes, if you will, soap globes that are surrounding the dirt. Take it off the surface, and then in the instance of an auto scrubber, they're keeping it in the recovery tank. In the instance of washing your hands, it's going down the sink.
Sure.
So, and they all work the same.
Right. So our neutral germicidal that we have for the floors, that one works. And one of the things that I know about that is our neutral germicidal does not harm finished floors, correct?
So the neutral germicidal is an EPA registered disinfectant. Okay. And if somebody does need to use a disinfectant on their floor for either peace of mind or an instance of contamination, we would recommend a neutral germicidal, because in the name neutral, its pH is 7. Okay. And so there's no harsh alkalinities there that will harm the coating on a floor. And it is a germicidal. So along with the floor cleaning surfactants, there is the quaternary amine in there to attack the bacteria, viruses, whatever's on the surface.
Whatever's present, right? Okay. But that's great information, and really thank you for coming today and telling us about this. This was all just really interesting. If you have any questions for John, please leave them in their comments on the LinkedIn page, and we'll get to John and make sure he gives us an answer right away. And we thank you for listening, and we look forward to seeing you again in the Essential Space.